This is session number 32 of the Silver Track Extra.
Thanks for tuning in to the Silver Track Extra, your source for the best tips, tricks, and how-tos to dominate the security industry, helping you improve your business, win more contracts, and crush your competition. Here are your hosts, Chris Anderson and Johnny Page.
What's up, Silver Track Nation? Johnny Page here, along with Chris Anderson on episode number 32 of the Silver Track Extra, where we're going to talk about the importance of gathering feedback from your security officers. Chris, it's super important to have an open door policy in the security industry for a number of different reasons. And this is something that you really focused on early in your career as a security company owner, right?
Yeah, this was very, very important. It's not, but it's something I learned later too.
So walk us through that process, Chris, of what you kind of got you to realize the importance of getting feedback from the officers, and how you really, because you really found that you couldn't do this unless they were on your side, right?
Yeah, well, people are going to relate to this. When I first started my company, obviously it was very small, and it was me, right? Me and a couple people. So I was the one who was handling the hiring process. I enjoyed it, right? Wanted to learn the ins and outs and so on. And I was talking to the employee. So I had a really good connection, the first connection with that employee. And they truly understood my vision, my passion, our mission statement, the whole bit. So it was a great way. It was a great intro. And the more I think about it, I was able to keep those, or in fact, I was able not only to able to keep those people, but they turned in to be long-term employees, if not managers with me, right? But as I grew the company and other people came in, of course, I started to hire people to take over that position. And even though I did share what our vision was with some of those managers or people that I moved in, I had to make sure that vision was shared with the employees out there, and we got away from that sometimes. We actually, some of the managers I was doing wasn't spending the time with those people, so I started to notice that we had more of a turn of guards that were unhappy. So you have to really set that open door policy, as we're going to get into, because it's a big part of your business.
So Chris, what does that really mean to you? Like when you talk about an open door policy, what does that really look like in place?
Well, you have to be careful when you do say open door. And what I meant by that is, listen, we have managers, we have schedules, we have things put together when you have a problem, whether it's a scheduling issue or whether it's just a personal issue, or maybe we have a chain of escalation. Please contact your supervisor, notify him. If he doesn't respond to you within a certain time frame, when we had a policy, 2 days, 48 hours, whatever it is, and you're not getting the answer you need, okay, I have no problem knocking on my door anytime, all right? It's because I wanted them to know that if they felt like they weren't being heard, they could come talk to me. And, of course, I wanted to know it too.
So you just basically made it available to them that if you're having an issue with your superior and you've gone through the proper motions, that you can come to me and we can get this worked out?
Yeah, absolutely. Because first of all, my upper level people should be coming to me anyhow when they have a problem. So if it got to a point where I had an employee walking in the door and I wasn't even aware of it, then I knew I had a major issue, right?
Yeah.
And if there was an issue and they did come to my door, I was already prepared for it, right?
Yep. Well, Silver Track Nation, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors over at Paperless Proposal. And when we get back, Chris is going to share an amazing story about an entire operation that was changed by the feedback from their officers. We'll take a quick break and then jump right back into our featured conversation.
Does your security business need to create business proposals to win clients? Are you frustrated by how much time and resources it takes to create and manage your proposals? If yes, I want to introduce you to Paperless Proposal Software. With Paperless Proposal Software, you can easily create impressive business proposals in minutes, and Paperless Proposal Software allows you to quickly and easily track and manage all of your proposals. Get a free demo at www.paperlessproposal.com/Silvertrack.
This topic was inspired by a conversation that you had earlier this week about a company that had an issue with a supervisor. And could you just kind of walk us through what the issue was and then why the feedback directly from the officers became so critical for this particular owner?
Yeah, well, this particular owner had somebody that started out with him, like me, in the very beginning, and he felt obligated to the guy, right? He loaned the guy some money, he did some different things with him, and he made him a supervisor. But the guy was doing the scheduling for his company and the supervision. So when he was out in the field talking to the officers felt that, this was a guy that they had to keep happy, because if they didn't keep him happy, they couldn't talk to him. They could possibly get a poor schedule. On top of that, the supervisor had poor communication skills. So he put everybody in fear. And the owner, it took him a little while, but he himself was starting to experience a lot of turnover with his company. And then it got to the point where his clients were calling and saying that the guy was a problem as well. So he had to really grab a hold of that. And as hard as it was to have this guy leave or terminate him, he had to do it. And he's glad that he did today.
And a part that you had shared with me was that the owner wasn't getting any feedback from the guards. Right, he didn't know that there was a problem with the supervisor. When you brought this up in a conversation, kind of talking through the problem together, he decided to call some of his former officers and find out why they left.
Yeah,
and it ended up being because of the supervisor, right?
Yeah, John. I'm sorry, I missed the most important point. That is true. He thought about it, and then he actually made a couple calls and found out that was exactly right. They were not only scared, but it was problematic, and a lot of it was related to the schedule. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, there just needs to be, so I guess what we're saying is that there needs to be a way for the officers to have access to, if there is a problem with your supervisor, especially if they have influence over scheduling or where they're going to be working, a supervisor can oftentimes make their job very difficult for an officer. And if this is the officer's only job or it's their main source of income, they really aren't going to be willing to speak up because they fear risking that position. So you can use your willingness to talk to the officers and to have that open door policy as an accountability tool for your supervisors, knowing that there's going to be communication between you and the officers from time to time and between the officers and yourself. That helps keep the supervisors in check. Chris, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and then, John, the other thing, too, your supervisors on a routine, on your weekly or your monthly meetings should be bringing those issues to the table. That's what you're going to need to do to make your company progress, right? You should always have your supervisors in the field come in, your executive teams, and you guys should have some productive meeting, right, because you can advance or just go over company issues. But the other thing I wanted to mention is when a company, or I should say an employee, terminates, you should have somebody sit with that person for a reason for termination, whether they're leaving, and find out what really happened, why they left. It's no different when you order a product and you return it. Everybody always wants to know why. Right?
Yeah, an exit interview.
Yeah, exit interview, absolutely. You can learn a lot. But, we stay so busy, and there's such a fast turn, and the business is it's 24 hours and it's hectic. We forget those things, right?
Yeah.
And,
these are things we can put in place to help make those not as big of a problem. If you can find out why your officers are leaving over and over again, you can stop. If it is something internally that's part of your culture, the way the procedures are set up, or maybe there's a competitor who they feel offers them a better opportunity, whatever it may be, if you don't get to the bottom of it, you can't fix it. So you've got to ask, right?
Yeah, and you have to remember, your employees are watching what you do and how you handle your supervision and how you manage your company. So if they're out in the field and they're seeing a supervisor that's probably treating them poor, or is getting away with other things, including other employees that get away with stuff, and you're keeping people, you're setting a bad example, right? Giving your company a poor image, right? So these guys know, right? It's kind of like that broken window. He doesn't care, right? Then why should I?
Yep.
That guy can call off. I can call off. So you got to have the stuff in place, especially when you're dealing with people, because they need to be treated like people, and but you got to have rules and regulations too.
Yeah, there's a old saying that a fish rots from the head down. And if there's problems in your supervision, there's probably problems in the field. And if you aren't willing to be gathering that feedback from your officers, it may go on longer than you as a business owner would like to see that happen. The second reason why I think it's super important to gather feedback from your officers is from a customer retention standpoint, in that your guards are going to be on site much more frequently than you are, or even your supervisors are. So if they can be there and they understand the goals of the customer and they understand their role within your organization, you can put incentive programs in place and let them know that if they'll recommend improvements to certain systems or processes or procedures, that you'll reward that you are looking for ways to continuously improve your services. And if they can provide suggestions like that, of course, set up a process, You don't want to, you can't get too bogged down, but if there's like some sort of way that they can submit comments, suggestions, or ideas to improve the way your service is being offered to your customers, that's a great way to get feedback from the field on a consistent basis. Because a lot of times, Chris, as the owners, we just don't make it out of the office, right? You get just buried under so much. It's important to have eyes on site and have officers that are really willing to improve what they're doing.
Yeah, it's very, very important that you keep your management team on the same vision, because you do get busy, and a lot of these companies expand. You get different operations and you lose touch, so got to stay in touch.
Chris, did you ever have those officers who just had your back no matter what, that they were the guys who stuck around extremely loyal?
Yeah, I did, and I had several of them. And the big part, too, is that I wanted to give them so much more all the time, because I know how hard they worked. And all I was looking for was just to get a weekend break, right, where I could go to dinner with my family without somebody rolling the car or taking a phone call from the client in the early stages, right? So, again, wrapping that team, it was family-based, and we really made it a family. So anytime I could offer that, I did, but I had to be very careful that I didn't overpromise, because if we lost an account, then it put us in a position where I couldn't reward that employee or give them an increase in pay. So I had to make sure my supervisor teams were in line. I had to make sure the employees were in line, and that the sales team, we were all working as a machine, and we all had a purpose, because we depend. Everybody's dependent on everybody, right?
Yeah.
Everybody had to be. It's a team effort, from guards all the way to sales to supervision. We all got to be on the same page.
Yeah, great point. Well, there's several ways that you can set this up. You can certainly have it to where they can just come into your office. One cool way that I've seen a customer using SilverTrak is they created a separate property in their account that was just feedback, and so it was available to all officers. They could go in, just submit their feedback, and that went directly to the owner. So when you needed it, you could go in, see the feedback from the officer, see who submitted it, and get the ideas for improvements, maybe any complaints about the supervisors or the schedules. But it was a way for you to document the process, a great internal use of SilverTrak. So whatever you decide to use, put something in place to where you can get that feedback directly from your officers.
Yeah, great point, John.
Well, guys, if you would like a more detailed article on everything that we've covered here in episode number 32, you can visit silvertracksoftware.com/32 for the show notes on this article. There's also a lot more reading material available there. Be sure to check that out. And until next time, I'm Johnny Page.
And I'm Chris Anderson.
This was the SilverTrak Extra, and we will talk to you soon.
This has been another episode of the SilverTrak Extra. For more insider information, visit silvertracksoftware.com/extra. Listen on the go by subscribing in iTunes. Want to hear your questions answered on the show? Visit silvertracksoftware.com/questions to submit your requests.